This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
We are now on the third and final day of the Magic Collectors Expo 2023, and we're in the dealer's room right now. We're getting ready soon to have a morning session, and the nice thing about this is our morning sessions don't start till 11 o'clock. Hey, we're old, so we all sleep in, go to bed early and then get up early, but we got to visit with everybody else to kind of see. And that's what this whole thing is about, getting to see some friends. I start to say old friends, but it's not that we're old, it's just we've known each other for a long time. And one of the people I want to reintroduce you to is Julie Yang, right here with Magicana. Hello, Julie. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
It's good to see you then as well. And coming all the way down from Canada. You're in Vancouver?
No, Toronto.
Oh, Toronto. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought I saw David Ben also.
He did, yeah. It's, we're back in person, Scott. So it's nice everybody can sort of, travel again, feel comfortable.
Right.
This is a really terrific turnout, as you said. We've seen a lot of our friends here. It's fantastic.
Now, I assume, like me, you've never seen Bruce Averbook's collection until yesterday.
No. Oh, my.
Well, your eyes just opened. Wow.
I know. I'm not allowed to say what I said. I have to edit heavily here. It was really a jaw-dropping. There's 3 floors, guys. So, I left my jaw upstairs and it kept falling.
Yeah.
It's level after level of unbelievable magic collected and displayed lovingly in a curatorial way, which was, I thought that was a real treat to see because, Bruce has been collecting this for so long.
Right.
And we've seen these collectors gather and, it's fun at auctions. It's always a bit, tongue in cheek because it's fun. It's about, where are you going to stick that under the bed kind of thing? Shove it in the closet. How are you going to get that home? That kind of.
Remember going to Nick Rogerio's house and we were looking at posters. He said, just when I went to his bedroom, he pulled all these posters out from underneath his bed,
Right. Let's do that. Like that's how the teasing side of it.
Yeah.
Now, this is not what we saw yesterday.
No. This I would say is David Copperfield Museum East.
Museum caliber. Bruce has been wise enough to partner with some curators as well and some art experts outside of the magic community to help him not only display but to think about curatorial themes and also preservation and provenance and how are you going to track that? How are you going to database that? How are you going to record that? I'm interested in the idea of the digital scans that he and his team will eventually make because it's building a true archive. Like it's not just something to look at. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It is beautiful. But to have it as a working library with actual archival value.
Right.
For us as a magic community and with this not new, but a very strong uprising of interest in history. We have this amazing resource now.
And he's got all these chairs around and, of course, in his library where you can sit and look at or research and write down notes or whatever.
Exactly. It's set up like an institution in the sense of it's inviting.
Yeah.
It's research friendly. Obviously one has to set up. It's also private, right?
Right, that's true. And the way I think that it's designed, the architecture of this is amazing so that you can kind of sit almost on any floor and kind of look at other floors. Because there's an open concept in the middle, the way that it walks around.
It's a beautiful concept. Yeah. Right from the beginning, Bruce had a vision. He wanted to display. So first of all, you need space. And fortunately for him, he has now created the space. It's adjacent to the home. It's not the home. And to have this grand staircase, literally a grand staircase, and it was always called that in the architectural schematics, to have this idea of coming down one level, turning, going down another level, you get a really grand sense, but it's a column that's open.
Yeah.
And there's this huge pillar that runs against it. So, it's a supporting beam or pillar. However, he's got all this, he's multiple 3 sheets hanging on top of each other.
Yeah. And beautifully displayed, and the lighting is gallery museum quality lighting and everything then too. So
and the way that the team and Bruce really wanted to display in areas and collections, but how do you choose that? How do you find your themes? Like, do you put your Aikido stuff here? How are you going to deal with Del O'Dell? She kept moving around.
Yeah.
Because does she belong here? Does she belong? Like, it talks about the versatility in the magic and the breadth of Bruce's collection. Right. It's really one of the wildest general magic collections one could ever, our guys have focuses for obvious reasons, either research or interest. Bruce bought everything.
He did. Kind of like whatever Jay Marshall didn't have that sold to Copperfield, he got, or something. It's kind of, he has everything over there.
Something to that effect.
That's true. Well, speaking of which, that was part of what some of the presentation was about last night. We had a fellow who was talking about the what you do with as you look after your collection, and people who are those people who kind of get into your business, and they shouldn't.
Sometimes with a nefarious theme. Is that the one you're?
That was it.
to?
Yeah, Steals, Lifts, and Body Loads: The Funny Business of Magic Collecting by Phil Schwartz.
I thought Phil did an excellent job of looking at the. It's a very difficult subject because we're a close-knit community.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone infiltrates that very safe network and has very nefarious, and I'm afraid to say, singular needs and wants, to feel that they can appropriate other people's stuff.
By going into their families, their widows, and
both with theft through manipulation, through pure cons and lies and fraud. It's disgusting and it's astonishing. And my mother relies on me to help her dispose of my father's collection. Right. Is by no means anything to, he had a very simple collection. But the idea that people could come and infiltrate and take advantage of her, just, it's a very unsettling feeling.
Right.
My dad never expected to die with that kind of a collection left.
Right.
And so this is what Phil was saying. Sometimes people are caught off guard and things happen, life happens. So you need to plan. I said this to my colleague, David. I said, you have a beautiful collection. Part of your responsibility is what happens to it.
That's exactly right. You can't put that burden on your family either.
You cannot. They don't know necessarily. No. And how can you ask them to have that level of interest? That's your interest. Because you're a stamp collector.
Wow, that's well put. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and it's that I was thinking that King George is trying to impose stamp collecting onto his son.
Yeah.
So the whole point is, Phil, while he was highlighting some very sad stories, he had some really great takeaways, and that is be responsible.
Right.
Take an initiative. It's not say get rid of everything. Just be responsible. This came from here. He had this really interesting affidavit. A notarized. What did he call it?
Well, it was a statement. It was
sort
a form,
of an indemnity
yeah.
thing. Yeah. It was basically a simple legal document that states, I have not done this. I've not given this away. I've not made other prior arrangements.
Anything outside of my will or estate.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a very simple statement. I believe it was from Bruce's lawyer who had drawn it up, just because they don't want to have that happen to Bruce's family or to his estate, should this beautiful collection have to come to a point where it is, redistributed. Okay. If it's redistributed. But then there's another question, Scott. He has 3 unbelievable floors. Is that going to be redistributed? Does it go to another institution? He has a lot to think about.
That's true. And unfortunately, we don't know how much time any of us have left,
Yes.
And we'd like to think there's a lot more time, which is another reason why you should start to consider giving away some of your things or disposing of it however you want, if you planned on selling it or whatever, or to, for the most part, our children, our heirs don't care for it. A few pieces, yes, perhaps, but for the most part, make sure that it gets in the hands of people who really want it, as you can right now. I've got a pretty massive book collection and stuff, and I'm starting to give things away to people I think who couldn't use it or deserve it,
I think that's part of the network I love about the community. You see a young person who might benefit. You just interviewed somebody yesterday who we were discussing, and here's a young person really raring to go, getting into it. So maybe that's where some things should belong now, in a different generation, that then they forward everything.
That's right. Pay it forward.
For us.
That's right. One of the people actually who started off last night was Richard Cohen, and we spoke with him last evening after his show, or after his presentation. He was talking about Voltaire Revisited, and that was about a magician who is little known among the rest of magic historians, is Voltaire. So we kind of covered that last evening. Did you have any comment or anything about how you enjoyed that, or learning more about him?
Richard is without a doubt one of the great storytellers of our art.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more I can add than here's a guy who took the time to bring an accordion
Yeah.
to
He
accompany
played an accordion down the aisle as he came up to the stage.
because he's thinking about telling the story and making World Tower memorable.
That's right. And that's exactly what he did.
He's exactly what he did.
Finally, we had Memories of the Blackstone Senior Show that was hosted by Bill Smith and featured Al Belmont. And I thought that was fascinating to have someone on stage who had actually been on stage with Blackstone Senior and received a rabbit from him even.
I know. And then to have that affect the rest of his life. I mean, here's a pivotal moment truly as a, what did he say, 5, 7, 8-year-old?
Mm-hmm,
I mean, there's the bunny. He's getting the rabbit. Stop, you squeeze too hard. And to listen to Al talk about that experience and then the ability to somehow magically have this amazing universal coincidence that allowed him with difficult funding situations, all of a sudden opportunities opened up and he's able to acquire part of the Blackstone show.
Right.
I mean, that's
including the very item of the crystal casket that had impressed him since he was a child.
And the bunny.
That's right. The bunny.
Didn't even know.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was done. Yeah.
That's that serendipitous curve. What a beginning, middle, end story. And I can see why Bill Smith is great. He's put on this terrific convention.
Right.
He thinks about the content and he thinks about the human story.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's what really moves me. I'm part of a magic family. I've grown up with this. I've known a lot of stories. I've seen great ones. I've seen sad ones. We've seen this this range, and to see this convention and something like Al's story, you're just like you just walk out with a smile.
It's true. That's true. So many good presentations. We still got a full day of them. We're going to be starting up here very shortly with another one then as well. Julie, thank you very much. Always good to see. Always good to see. I guess you'll be at Magic Live again this year.
I'll see you at Magic Live.
All right. Until later. That was Julie Yang with Magic Hall. This is Scotty out. Not Magic Hall. Sorry, that's the name of your magazine. Magic Hannah. Magic Hall is
we're going to have to take Scott. I'm going to go sell him a Magic Hall right now, guys.
This is Scotty out. We have just completed the afternoon session, and the dealers are going to be open for a little bit longer, and then we're going to be, I think, having another session before our banquet dinner, and things are going swimmingly well. This is just a great convention in so many ways, and this is unique, as we've talked about already on this podcast, about how that we have done special things, like we've taken the bus tour to see a couple of amazing collections, one of which was Bruce Averbooks, and we have him with us to talk right now. So, Bruce, hello, and thanks and welcome.
Oh, you're welcome, Scott. Thanks for having me on again.
Yes. Well, when I had heard about your collection, you were talking about this last year, and I was surprised.
We were at Magic Live.
Exactly. And you were saying about that you had built this house, I guess, during COVID, but the architects, it was hard to imagine what it was going to look like until I got in there. And it was just an amazing museum. And as I just signed in your book in there saying, from now on, I'm going to be calling David Copperfield's museum the Bruce Averbook Museum West. So
no, don't do it.
It is amazing what
David's
stuff you have.
museum is amazing and special, and we're both different. It's different because of how we set it up.
You got a bar. He didn't have a bar like that. Like, you
can always put a bar. And I'm sure he could get you a drink. I mean,
but the thing that Kerry had built down there was cool. With the lampshades and whatnot that he had built and all that. Yeah.
It's a great place and a great resource. I mean, and he's been very generous to everybody. You know, so. It's kind of I think he and I talk a little bit now, which is cool.
You didn't before?
During the course of this time a bit, but we've gotten to know each other a little better. And he's very knowledgeable and has a great, sense of magic, of course. I mean, he's a legend and he's a living legend. We're very fortunate to have him alive and doing this. So, we talk sometimes and, get some ideas. So, and how can I say this? I think that what he's doing is very special. And,
it really is. And when he got involved in this, I remember hearing the story that Mike Caveney had suggested to him, hey, you need to buy it. Maybe it was the Mulholland collection. I think it first got him into that. Was there something or somebody that you were from L.A. You lived out and you were brought up like around the castle and everything. So was there something that to you, it's like, hey, I'm going to start collecting?
Well, I guess, I was doing magic, as a kid. I mean, I'm making some money doing it too. and involved with the castle. My parents became associate members because of my interest. And
you were a junior at the time, or
no? They never had juniors at that point. Even there's some real funny stories and interludes, which I can expound a little bit. But they didn't have. They had, I used to go there for the Sunday brunches as a kid and see everybody, Di Vernon, Larry Jennings, Bruce Servan, Charlie Miller, all these guys. And then I asked them, I'd like to do a show. So they let me do some shows in the close-up room when I was, 12, 15. I was, and I was pretty good. I think they give it free lunch, free brunch or something like that.
Yeah, to the performer, yeah.
But it was pre-Diana
Zimmerman
doing that. And the funny thing is, Diana Zimmerman and Dick lived up my street.
Oh, how funny is that?
I was on Spring Park. They were on, I think it's Holt, but it was just up the street. And I found out about this. I was always too shy to go and knock on the door. Now that I know Diana, she says, "Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you?" But I was, everybody was, I felt in this reverence. And
I would love to have heard Dick Zimmerman practice his jazz piano. Just go, you know what I mean? Just go and hang out and listen to him practice.
Well, I was too young to appreciate that.
Ragtime, I guess, what he kind of did.
Yeah. So, a number of the things that I got into that I say is collecting. I had it as a kid. Like I would go up to, Burt Wheeler's Hollywood Magic. I met Louis St. Pierre Sr. and I bought my first magic and books from them. Went to Joe Berg's magic shop in Hollywood. I would take the bus 45 minutes. I'd go on my own and walk the Hollywood Boulevard to the two shops and buy tricks and magic tricks. I always have to clarify that.
To a certain generation. Yeah.
But it was wonderful. So like my Owen divination, I got it at Joe Berg's. My coin kill was at Dissector was at Hollywood Magic. So
these things became very personal to you.
Yeah, they're there in the museum.
Yeah.
They're there. But real collecting, as far as collecting went, about 1991. And I was at the National Cancer Institute with the NIH doing my fellowship in surgical oncology. As I said in the discussion the other day with the interview, I met this guy, George Wu, the psychic detective, great guy, retired police detective. And we became best buddies doing stuff, trying to fool each other. And he invited me into this group called the Scorpions. It was like 6 to 8 guys, and they would meet once a month and try to fool each other. And the person who would win, we all voted, would get a prize. Ken Trombley was, one of the members, and Ken had this fantastic collection, was interested in collecting, and his posters. And Ken kind of put the switch on that.
Wow.
Wait, there's a way to get some of these things. There's lists, and he showed me kind of where to go for this. So Mario Carandi and Ron Alessi, Keena Thompson, all these, I started to find out and call them up, and the lists would come out, and that's how I kind of started with the collecting. I'd learn about it. And then I more and more, getting back into the history and reading about it. And the passion for it was always there. And
a little at a time, just started building up like that.
I started out with small apparatus, at Brema. I love Brema. And
were you buying and or trading at the time?
No. Well, I would buy little things, but trading, I didn't have enough to trade.
Yeah.
Are
you at a point now? Do you trade? I mean, I remember. For an example, I was talking with Nick Ruggiero many years ago, and he was now different ways of magicians are displaying this. And I was just talking with someone earlier about this and saying about how when I was visiting at his house and he was showing me some posters, we went into his bedroom and pulled them out from underneath the bed, and we were going through these things. And I said, well, this is interesting. He said, well, I'll trade you for it, because I had a Blackstone poster that he didn't have and he wanted that. And I started thinking, so that's how, you acquire things. You don't buy it from a collector. You trade with the collector.
Trading for me is really hard. And there's a number of guys that want to trade now. Because I like these things.
Sure. They mean something to you.
And also,
there's a story.
Sometimes, getting part of what I'm doing, part of the impetus and what I've been doing recently, now that I've retired from surgery, is getting everything lined up so I know what duplicates I have, what I can trade, what I can't, because I don't want to trade some things that I want to keep.
Right.
And I mean, I know that's what Ken and everybody, they trade their duplicates for the most part.
Right.
none of these guys really want to trade their unique piece. So they want my unique piece. So it's funny. I've done some trades. I always feel like I've lost something when I've traded. But I have done some trades.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Even though you've acquired something new, but you still missed the thing that you spent so long to acquire.
Right. And I also, there was a reason I picked it up. So trades are hard for me because I think that I'm always not sure I did the right thing in terms of the deal.
Yeah.
How do you do a trade? Do you just do it because you really, really want it, or do you set a value on it and say, well, let's trade equal value?
Yeah.
And, to some extent, maybe that's the better way to do it. And I've got a few guys wanting to trade for something now, and I'm not sure I want to, it's a duplicate of a rare piece. There's maybe only two of.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything that's really bowled me over to make me really want to do that trade.
Right.
So they're not offering the thing that they would want to give up that's really special.
Right.
I want them to, they have to come up with something really special.
I was wondering yesterday, and I don't know how many people might be thinking this in the back of their mind. It's a question that is unasked, and that is like for collectors, particularly like you and with Copperfield, do you at some time during the day, I mean, there are different chairs and you've got in the bar, different places to go and sit. Do you just kind of sit and you pull off a book, you look at it, read a book, or, and then you kind of look around, reflect on these things and think, I love, this was a good story. I liked how I got this one, or, maybe I can find something else. I mean, do you sit in there and reflect it, or do you invite people over? Do you have parties? I mean, you got a bar. I mean, of course, now this is relatively new and you
we're just starting. I mean, I'm just,
What is your plan for opening this up, and how do you enjoy it?
It's a private museum. I thought about creating a foundation, but there's some certain legal aspects to it because it's attached to the house that I can't do it quite like that. I could make an off-site foundation if I wanted to, but then everything you have is out of your estate. And, all the money I've put into it, wouldn't be for the family in the future, and how do you keep this all together? You have to have the money to keep it together, and the endowment. A lot of foundations die.
Right.
So, and
shortly after the person who owns it dies, you're right.
Right. How do you keep a foundation going? And then what about the collectors? Should this go back to the community? We've talked about this with people. This is on the Phil Schwartz's Thayer side. This is some of the discussions. So I have yet to completely decide how I'm going to manage that. As far as a private museum, I'm going to keep it a private museum, not a public. I'm going to create a business entity, which is with an online presence, to do that properly too, and maybe sell some merchandise or sell some things. Maybe I'll put some things in Potter and Potter auction, Haversatt Ewing auctions, and try to, or Jim Rollins auctions. Try to do some things with these people who also helped me out over the years. My goal with this is more than just the museum per se. I want to do some what I call academic magic. I'd like to publish. I'd like to write. I'd like to work with people on doing some good projects. So we have some projects in the works already. I want to give back. Magic for me, as I told everybody, has been something that keeps me kind of sane in an insane world. And I dealt with life and death every day. Yeah. This was a way that escaped or was healthy. And I think it's very healthy for people to know about magic and to be entertained by magic. I think what we do, we don't always understand how important it is. I actually used the concepts of magic in my practice for dealing with people with cancer and their pain control, not just doing a magic trick, which would happen now, but the actual use of the principles that we know psychologically can make a huge difference on someone's outcome, in my opinion.
Of course, yeah.
And I use that, and I think to great effect. Had really, really worked well with my people.
Yeah.
I see the museum as it's not about me. Everybody wants to make it about me, and they said, of course I have some ego into it, but it's about the magic and about what it's done for me, and I want to give back. So so that's one. Number two, the museum, I want to have people have access to see things and learn about things, and we have to get more information on some of these articles and items and objects in the museum. I want it to be for research to some extent. There's things that I want to work on, so I've held them close to my heart, but I want to publish and do, so I haven't been able to really give that up to people. So like the project that John Cox and Mike Cavity and I are working on
looks like a great book coming out.
With the book.
It's going to be coming out Magic Live. Is that right? They're going to release it this year, I think?
We'll see what happens.
Well,
We'll see how fast we can move. I mean, John's done a great job of translating. I mean, I told him about a few things, but John, he just, he pulls it all together. He knows he's that, and we talked to a number of other people who are willing to, all the guys and the guys that publish were willing to contribute and be helpful. Mm-hmm. This is a great community. And, I selected Mike, for a variety of reasons, went to John because John has been talking to me about this for a long time. He's really wanted to see this book. So I wanted him to be in his hands, but I wanted to do it in a way that fit my timeline, what was right to where I would be involved in a significant way. And that's why we're doing it now. But that's part of it. So I have other projects. Dave Haversatt and I have a project. Magic Cannon and I will have a project. We're talking, Ken Trombley and I and Rich Hatch have a project. Mm-hmm. There are things that I want to do with people and get information out for the future for Magic. I think it's really important. And so I see it as a mechanism to grow the Magic information and history, to promote
appreciation of our history too,
and that's why I call it the Magic Art Museum and Library. The art. This is not. It's not just. It's artistic. The beauty of it. There's so much. When you're in my museum, the way I try to set it up is that things play off of each other. The colors, the color schemes, and the
feng shui of this is beautiful. I mean, I appreciate that.
So there's a
the
perspective
from an artistic standpoint. It's beautifully laid out.
I wanted to do it with that in mind. So it's not, you go and you look at a painting, a significant. It's yes, hopefully there's a message or something, but there's also a feeling. You look at the Magic, there's a feeling, and we all, for a lot of it's nostalgic, a lot of it's personal, and a lot of it is how it makes us feel about life,
right?
And also what did it mean back when Houdini was alive, when Thurston was alive?
Right.
We have the sense of the golden age. Well, we're living in a really pretty cool magic age now too.
We are. Well, one of the things also then, Bruce, as we start to wrap up over here, is just about we're opening this up, and now people are going to be talking about this that they haven't talked about your museum from before. So there'll be more people probably reaching out to you saying, "Hey, how can I get a private tour of this?" So how are you going to handle that, and will you be offering tours to people magicians who reach out?
It's funny. I've already had a letter from the Western Reserve Architectural Historical Society.
It's funny because I was just thinking about the Architectural Digest. Your place would be perfect. I could just see that in that magazine. But anyhow.
So they want to come. I mean, this is through a referring dermatologist for many years. He knew about this, and he wants to bring this group because he's the president. So what I have yet to sit down and completely organize it. This is we really pushed hard.
To get this.
The deadline to have this, and this was a very good impetus to do this.
Yeah.
Now comes a lot of hard work on some of the organizational. How do I set it up so because it's my home too, and I want to stay married. So
I haven't met your wife, but the picture I took of you the other day, that she looks like she is a great companion and loving woman.
But she has, she's been great.
Support you.
She's been wonderful. But she wants time for us, and so I can't have people coming every week, right? I can't. There's things I have to set up. I have to set a schedule. So we've got to figure that out a little bit. Fortunately, I have some great museum people working with me. Real people with a lot of information and background, and I think I'm going to also tap their knowledge on maybe how I would set this up, and I'll talk to some other people. But I think it would have to be limited times, and then clearly friends and people in the collectors community would call me and we'd set something up.
That's what I did before with Ken Klosterman. Ken Klosterman was a good friend, and so I would stay at his home, and I had all the time I wanted to go, and he even gave me a check that Thurston had signed. It's a long story, but he was always very kind to me and said, whenever you're in town, just stop by. I mean, it was just like a, next door neighbor kind of a guy,
to some extent, I'd like to be like that, but I think I have to have some limits because my wife has, maybe she's a little different than Judy was. You know,
Judy was wonderful.
Yeah. So Lorene has some limits, and I have to kind of set it a little bit.
I remember having breakfast with them, and Judy turned to Ken and said, "I don't know, about all these other guys, but as for magicians, I really like this guy. He can come back anytime because he doesn't just talk about magic; he talks about other things that are of interest to me." So I was flattered that she, thought of me as being a friend and more than just a magician who was wanting to see his collection.
That's great. Yeah. So it's
something you got to figure out.
So I've got to figure it out a little bit and I think it's some of it's going to be on the fly. I mean, say you call me, you're going to be coming up, you want to be in the area, we'll set something up.
Yeah.
Or I'll say I can't do it. We're going to be out of town, or we're doing,
I understand.
It's going to vary. I've got, to some extent.
Right.
But I'm going to keep it a private. It can't be public. It's a residential area.
Sure. You don't have cars driving up and down. Your neighbor's going to start to complain for long too.
Right. The neighbors know. The neighbors want to see.
Well, that's something what you should probably do first off is let the neighbors see, so this way that they can be talking about it as well. So when you do have cars coming in, they're knowing what they're seeing.
Some of the neighbors have it. It's a nice community.
Yeah, it is.
And one of the things you notice about my place, and it's a big place, but it doesn't look so big from the outside, does it?
No.
We did that. It's like a Gonzanita box. We did that on purpose.
Goes into box, yeah.
Goes into box, yeah. I'm sorry, I say Gonzanita box. It doesn't look as big on the outside as
it's like a TARDIS,
right? And we did
Doctor Who's TARDIS.
Too obsequious. I didn't want a place that a long winding driveway away. I wanted in a community. There's some advantages that when you get to know the neighbors, they can keep a lookout on your place.
Right.
They're involved. They're very interested in coming over and seeing. We've had neighbors over who have an idea about what's going on. One of the neighbors may be our next mayor. So, and the police chief has been over.
Nice.
The current mayor's been over. People are really interested in this community. So it's fun for them too. And so I want to keep it that way. So yes, maybe they'll be a little flexible on certain things that we might do. And the other thing I didn't even mention, I want to do fundraising.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I want to do so, like for the hospitals, for
people can pay to come in, and then they go to a certain fund that you designate.
Or like or charities. I want to do some fundraising there and get some magicians in and do it. And the local magic clubs, I'd like to utilize that.
Right.
And the stage downstairs. We put things on the stage now, but that's not the way it was intended. Right. That's just for this.
I understand. Well, Bruce, thanks very much, for opening your home and opening your museum and everything that you've done for the magic community and also not just for this generation, but for generations to come, because the legacy will certainly live on, I think, with everything that you have done and your love and attention to not just magic, but to the beauty and the art of magic. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for taking the time to interview me. Sorry it was hard to catch. It's been a little
You've been a busy guy. I don't want to keep hounding you, and I'm trying to get people as I can. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it, Bruce.
Great. Thank you.
You bet. So the Magic Word Podcast. That was Bruce Haverbrook. Move back over into the dealer's room because the dealers are starting to roll up their posters and pack up their props and getting ready to put things away. And one of the people who was not a presenter, but he had a few things to say, and that's Lance Burton.
Hey,
Lance?
Scott, how are you?
I'm fantastic. That was interesting.
David Charvet was giving a lecture on magicians in their cars.
Automobiles. Conjurers in their cars.
Conjurers in their cars. And he went through, Houdini's car that he drove and that he owned and all the magicians of that era.
And
then cars that they used in shows. Thurston
they vanished.
Vanishing Whippet. Yeah. And so then he had videos of a video of several magicians who had vanished a car, and he closed with my vanishing car from my first television special,
1996.
Yes, and that was shot at Caesar's Palace, and that was actually the first time we did the vanishing car, and then because I was still at the Hacienda at the time.
And that was done for a live audience. That wasn't...
that was in front of a live audience. And then a few months later, I opened at the Monte Carlo, and we had it in the live show.
I was going to say, they didn't look like the Monte Carlo stage, so that was...
That was Caesar's Palace.
Caesar's, okay.
That's where I was performing at the Hacienda, but we shot the TV special at Caesar's.
Okay.
And then a few months later, we opened at the Monte Carlo, and that's when I had a stage big enough to do the Vanishing Car in the show. So yeah, so I just got up and told a little of the background of my involvement.
That was very insightful. It's nice that Johnny Gahn was there, as well as Bill Smith, because Bill had built that, I guess.
Bill built mine, and Johnny Gahn had built Mark Wilson's vanishing car, and he used kind of a cargo net type of illusion.
That was the first one he showed. That was 1980, I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that was the first and only time Mark ever did it. It was for a TV special,
and they hadn't even rehearsed it.
They hadn't rehearsed it, and it was. And the best part was Johnny talking about lifting that contraption up off the stage. It was 4 separate chain motors.
Yeah.
And they were not synced together.
Yeah.
So you got 4 stagehands operating 4 chain motors.
Right.
Very tricky because you know if one goes up a little
inch at a time.
If one goes a little faster, it could tilt the platform. The car could roll off.
And that's what he was saying after it was over. They were trying to let it back down, and took longer to go down than it did go back up because it was starting to roll out.
Yeah. So
there was a lot of danger that could have been involved.
People love hearing those behind the scenes stories.
They also showed the one of Kalinag actually on a television show of vanishing his car.
And that was the method that. Basically, the method I think Thurston used. It was they pulled it in a garage, and it was a 45-degree slats.
Yeah.
With the mirrors that slide into place. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting because we'd seen photos, of course, of it, read it in books.
Right.
But as far as I know, that's the only film I've seen of that. Yeah.
Now, your poster actually showed these ladies, your assistants, who were around the stage, but it was a floating Corvette. So did you fly a car or just vanish a car?
Yes,
or both?
I did at the Monte Carlo. I opened the second half of the show with the car production. Mm-hmm. So it was a peering car, and then I drove it forward, and then I did the Miser's Dream with the kid from the audience, and I put the kid in the car and vanished the car with the kid in it.
Yeah.
And then I would say to the parents, I can bring your kid back or the car, whichever you like.
That's a great line.
And then the thunder clap would happen, and the evil villain would come on with the girls, and they would do the hangman. They hung me, and then I came down the chandelier in the middle of the theater.
And is that when you did the
sword
fight?
No, that was later. That was the end of the show. But same character. Yeah. He appeared like 2 or 3 times during the show. And then at the end of the show, we did the sword fight, and with the transposition, and then I introduced the cast, and everybody took a bow, and then you got time for one more, and the curtain would open, and there's the car. I'd jump in the car, and they'd cover it with a cloth. It would float up in the air, and it would float through a giant hoop. I had a giant 10-foot tall hoop
that you could hold.
That it was on a stand. The girls and the car floated through it, and they pulled the cloth off, and there's the car floating, and then the wheels flipped up, and smoke came out the back, and the car flew off into the air as the curtain closed.
Back to the Future.
And that was, kind of Back to the Future. And that was the last trick. And then I would come out for my final bow.
Mm-hmm. Good show. I remember that. Seeing at the Monte Carlo a few times. It was excellent. So are you a collector, or would you consider yourself? I know you got like some of Blackstone Jr.'s things. I've seen some things.
I'm desperately trying not to become a collector. I'm desperately.
You consider yourself an accumulator at this point?
Well, I moved back to the farm and I built a warehouse. I have all of my props, all of my illusions, all of my costumes, all of my scenery and drops. I have it all there.
But do you have that arranged for, somebody taking it later rather than getting lost?
No, we're trying to get it organized now. We're in the process of putting industrial shelving up and getting everything organized. I want all the drops over here in one section and all labeled, and I want all the levitations in one section. And so that's what we're working on now, getting it all organized.
All right, thinking about maybe having a little bit of a museum for people to come take a look at?
I'm
just for storage only.
I'm just storing it, and when Siegfried and Roy retired, I was over at their warehouse, and Siegfried points out all of his illusions, and he says, there they are. There's the illusions. There's the costumes. They're all there. They're safe. When I'm dead, they can do what they want with them.
And they have.
Yeah.
It was a big auction.
So that's exactly it. there they are when I'm dead.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I know where they are. I can put my hands on it. I can touch it. Well, as far as an important piece, you say I'm trying not to be a collector. Is there one piece that you own that you really enjoy looking at and having to see every day that's in your room, or is there something that you would like to acquire that's on your?
No, I'm not really looking to acquire
bucket
anything. The only things that I've saved are things that meant something to me personally.
Yeah.
You know, like my props or costumes and
Like that Blackstone.
the Blackstone.
Merlin
That's
thing.
really the only thing I ever. That's really the only thing I remember that I bought was. I was such a fan of transpositions because of seeing Harry Blackstone Jr. when I was a teenager that I bought the costume, the Old Man and the Whiskers. So I have that, and I have my sword fighting guy. You know,
Right.
And I keep them together, mounted on a dressmaker's stalls, so they're on display.
Right.
But so that's
Beyond
why I
that,
say
there's
I'm
really
desperately trying not to.
Keep away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lance, always good to see you, and it's a fun convention. Has there been something that's been outstanding? I mean, there's a lot of really great talks.
Oh, these talks are fantastic. David Charvet, his talk was great today, and yesterday we had. Every day they've had fantastic talks.
John Cox was talking today.
Yeah, John Cox was
about
great.
Cleveland magician, rather Houdini in Cleveland.
Houdini
it
in
was
Cleveland,
great.
and had some great stories about Houdini. So these are all just fascinating to me. And tonight they're closing with Mike Caveney.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm really looking because Mike has always got great information, great stories.
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of reading his sawing book.
Oh, yeah, me too. I've got that on.
Those are just fascinating stories of the history of the sawing and Golden and Selbit and the lawsuits and
it's all there.
It's all cloak and dagger. It's great.
Yeah, I'd recommend that book too if people don't have that. That's one they should go get. Well, Lance, again, as always, very good seeing you. Good talking to you.
Thanks, Scott. Good to see you. Thanks for covering these things.
So, with the Magic Word Podcast, that was Lance Burton. Scotty out. And while we are still in the dealer's room and packing up, one of the people who was packing up, I'm interrupting then right now, was one of our presenters yesterday, and that's Jim Hagy. Hey there, Jim.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm fantastic. You've got a voice for radio. Man, say it again. Say hello.
No, thank you very much. It's funny. Once in a while, people come up and they say they enjoy listening to me on the radio, except I'm not on the radio. So,
but you have that kind of a voice like, I must have heard you on the radio.
No, you're very kind to say that.
And also, the way that you write, it is very interesting. You had given me a copy of the Fair Tricks book before, which was interesting about because that was a Columbian exposition in Chicago. Is that
That's
right?
1893, absolutely.
I was very fascinated by that. My friend Don Weiberg had given a tour of that, when he used to work with the Chicago Architectural Foundation. And so I've gone through all that, and I'm very familiar with all that. But having read that and hearing about everything and the magicians who were there, just did a great job. And that's one of many books that you've been writing. And the one that you had just recently completed was the one that you gave the presentation on just the other night. And you can talk a little bit about that, about the Cleveland gang.
No, it's fine. Thanks so much for doing that. So the Cleveland was, an important industrial city in the growth of America during that period, 1890 and 1910. So it had lots of wealth, but it also had lots of immigrants, both from the South and from Europe, all clamoring for entertainment. And so there was this group of Cleveland magicians who are collaborative, not competitive, but really 20 or 30 of them, a remarkable number, all of whom were chasing that same Houdini-like vaudeville dream. Many of whom were active in vaudeville for a little while, and then predictably most went on to other careers but kept their interest in magic throughout their lives. So it's just this crazy concentration of Clevelanders all chasing that same brass ring. It's a fun group of people.
Well, that's the thing is people wonder, well, why are you going to be having a collectors convention in Cleveland? What's Cleveland got to offer? Golly, that was a great way of starting because you said, well, here's this, and this. And your book, how many pages is that? It looks like it's about 200 pages or so.
It's 3 1/4. And because I'm an academic, you don't have to suffer through this. But at the back, there are 1,350 endnotes. So you won't see many of those in the magic community. It's funny, though, Scott, because a couple of people asked me last night who are new to the magic community. They asked 2 questions I hadn't anticipated, and I guess I should have addressed. One is, were those real people? Didn't occur to me to say that, but they were, in fact, real.
Why would they think they're not real?
Magicians. So anyway, and then I guess we're all getting older. Did I ever meet any of them? And, of course, when I was a kid growing up in Cleveland in the 60s, all these guys were still around, and they're families and friends didn't care about magic the way we do. So I inherited all of their stuff that they had kept from their shows and their broadsides and their photos and whatnot. And so they're, in a way, I'm a caretaker of those.
You became a collector very early on.
I was interested in magic history from the time I was 11. I was at the first Magic Collectors meeting in the back of J. Marshall's Magic Incorporated in Francis's in 1970.
Wow.
And I'm a kidder, as you already know. But so I was 15 at that conference. I was the youngest person there. And when they ran out of people to honor, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, and Richard Kaufman and I were honored, I was still the third youngest person there. So we need new blood, and there's new blood at this meeting this time, which is great.
Well, that's a good thing. I think that the Magicana is doing, with the Magic Hall and other things, that particularly since Yu Liang had just taken over as editor of the magazine and all of this, that trying to bring this, I think, to younger people who will become collectors. I have seen a few young people walking around, mostly older people, but I'd say that the younger people have certainly brought the average age down a little bit. So I'm excited about that.
No, I agree. It's great to have new blood and to have a vibrant, lively audience like this, a vibrant community of people. So, and
someone interested who might want to carry on that tradition. It's like, okay, this might be a young person who will take my stuff and care for it.
That's right, and I think it's as I know you do, as much about stories as it is about artifacts. It's not just about sort of accumulating things,
right?
But appreciating the heritage of this art that we both love.
That's what I was just talking to Bruce Averbook about, from the standpoint that he's got so many things over there that I'm sure everything has a story as to how he acquired it and means something. I mean, it's like in my house, and I walk around, and I mean, my house was a museum also of my own making. And so when I look at things, everything means everything. Same thing like with T-shirts, where I got a T-shirt that says something, So yeah, we all have stories.
No, that's absolutely right. And while there are dealers here selling things so you can acquire that way. If Bob Lund were here, as you know, he would say there's something for free that no one else is focused on that you can begin to accumulate that tells its own story, that has its own pattern, and so it's not as hopeless as trying to acquire a first edition of Scott's.
Right.
There's something out there that tells a story that can be yours.
There was some advice that John Cox had given me a long time ago, and that is that, and someone had told him, and that is, don't try and buy a lot of things throughout the year, but spend the same amount of money to buy one thing per year, that however much that you can afford, buy that. And then over a period of time, a dozen years, you got a lot of really, really nice things, that have probably appreciated value. But there again, like with art and music, you don't, and books, you buy something that you want and not something because you think it's going to appreciate in value.
I think that's right, and as John Cox's presentation today illustrated, and several of my other books do, as institutional collections get digitized, even though they may not have a specific focus on magic, you can find more and more artifacts, images, information from, whether it's from the University of Texas, the New York Public Library, the British Library. You can have an interest where you can learn a lot and become the expert, right, without spending a penny. That will surprise everybody else in our magic community. So there are lots of opportunities to collect knowledge,
right?
Not just pieces of paper or props.
Good. Jim, thanks very much for your time.
Very kind. It's great to see you. Thanks for everything you do.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for the presentation you gave the other day and everything. So looking forward to seeing you down the road.
Thanks.
So the Magic Word Podcast. That was Jim Hagy. Scotty out. We were just talking a moment ago there with Jim Hagy and also then with Bruce Averbook as far as the future of collecting and young people being involved with collecting. And it's always encouraging to see younger people who are here. And I thought it'd be interesting to talk with someone who is a collector and who represents the young people. And that's Ben Winn. Hi there, Ben.
Hi, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. And I did recognize you from the, Lance and David's Collector's Corner, Sunday's Collector Corner, because you've been a very avid collector for a long time. And you're how old now?
I am 19 now. So,
and you are quite a historian.
Yeah, well, I love the history of magic. I started out as a performer. I kind of performed and I dabbled, and I was not a good performer.
Okay.
And so I really got interested in the history. I met Adele, and I heard her stories, and I kind of learned about all of the fascinating figures in magic, and that really got me down this path. Mm-hmm. And I've just really been enjoying it. So, yeah.
Is there a particular area that you collect? I mean, do you like posters? Do you like books? Do you like ephemera? I mean, is it like all of it, or is there a particular thing that you prefer?
Well, I really like postcards and signed
Smaller
photographs and
Okay.
books, paper mostly.
Okay.
And I like stuff. I like the big names. I like Blackstone and Thurston. Well, Thurston's hard to find, but Keller and that type of stuff. But I also really like learning about obscure performers or performers who haven't really been explored.
Like Rotaire that Richard Coate talked about.
Exactly. And recently I've been researching a troupe of dwarf magicians.
What?
Performers.
Wow. Okay.
So, and this was spurred by an acquisition of a few postcards I found of them, and I've kind of gone down this rabbit hole.
How long ago was that? I mean, like the turn of the century in 1900s? Or
They started out in 1906, and they went through to about 1940.
and it was
So
a troupe of them.
there were three of them.
Okay,
There were three
traveled
of them.
together.
Yeah, it was two brothers, and then one of them married another little person.
And did they work like in theaters or like carnivals or
They worked
sideshows?
They worked in vaudeville, and then they worked in England. They were performers in England, and they were called Leonard, Seaman, and Sonia.
Okay.
And they started out as the Franco brothers. So
you're going to start to
Yeah,
do some research. We might hear you talk about that next year.
maybe we'll see. But maybe I'm hoping to write something for Jim Hagy's publication. So
Right.
we'll see.
A friend of mine in Houston has, for a long time, been researching lesser-known magicians who were Civil War magicians.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
were working during that 5 years from 1870 to 75. And I don't know that he's ever put the book together, but he's got a lot of research. He's got a lot of material there.
Well, that sounds fascinating, and I really look forward to reading that.
Yeah, I do too. When I talk with him times that I'm how's it going, and he's got so many other projects. I mean, it's just anyhow. I think it's fascinating to learn about a lot of the people like Augustus Rapp. I remember when that book had come out.
Forty Miler. He was a big 40 Miler.
There
He
you
was
go.
great, yeah.
Yes. And so aside from that, you say so you don't perform anymore. You're really more of a collector. I
I'm more
guess.
of a collector. Yeah.
What do your parents say? I mean, as far as where do you put the stuff? And
Well, they are.
they support you?
They're supportive.
That's great.
They support. My dad doesn't really understand it, and my mom, I'd say the same. But they really support me, and I'm very blessed to have such supportive parents. And my two brothers, I have two younger brothers, and they don't understand it at all, and they think it's stupid. But that's okay, because I think they're some of the things they do. The video games, I'm not really into it. So
when you're not in college yet, or have you started?
I'm in college.
You're a freshman right now.
I'm a freshman in college.
What are you studying?
I'm currently undecided, but I'm thinking about studying law. So that also requires a lot of research, and I feel like this has kind of prepared me, to do research. Doing research in magic has prepared me kind of, for this law thing. And so,
That's insightful and inspirational because I think for people to hear that, to say, I'm a young person, I'm thinking about studying law, and magic has helped me focus more to learn law.
yeah,
That's great.
Yeah. So
What a story.
yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Scott.
I wish you great luck on that. That's going to be great. And also for more things that you're going to be doing, I'm sure, with your life as it goes on.
Thank you so much, Scott. This has been great.
So, for the Magic Word Podcast, that was Ben Winn. Scotty out. The convention's still going on. A lot of stuff still yet to go for today, but I don't want this opportunity to slip by because there are a lot of people here who are collectors and have interesting collections and also different ways of displaying their collection. And my friend Bill Winters, who just gave an excellent presentation a little bit earlier here today, had reintroduced me to Cato, who we had met at Abbott's but so many years ago. And you're going, by the way, so here he is, Cato Holler. Hey, Cato.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody.
So are you planning on going back to Abbott's later this year?
I would love to. I don't know if we'll make it or not. But,
Okay. Well, if you do, I'll be there. At least I'm planning on myself. So see you.
Right.
So Bill was telling me a little bit about your collection, and it's kind of interesting. You want to talk a little bit about that?
well, we're in
Your
Western
display.
we're in Western North Carolina, and we've been collecting for a good while. We were bibliophiles first. We collected books, and the books were overrunning the house. So we decided we better add on a library, and in doing so, we included a steampunk bar. One of my sons is an artist, and he designed this bar for us, which is Jules Verne themed.
How cool.
Jules Verne was my idol. That's how I got into cave exploration. Our whole family's involved in speleology as well as magic.
Okay.
And
You aren't a geologist by trade, are you?
well, I started out as a geologist and a geology major, and I switched over to biological sciences and ended up being a dentist. So I practiced dentistry for 32 years.
different kind of geology, looking down people's throats.
I tell people caves and cavities. It's all related.
That's right.
And so we put in the library, and my wife, this is Susan, my wife, she's here with us today. She designed the bookcase, and she should have been an architect years ago. She said, well, you can pack a lot of books in a small space if you make the bookcase open up like a gigantic book. So that's the way we designed the bookcases. They all opened up, and on the inside of each one is a series of shelves. The back wall is shelves, and the corresponding leaf of the book.
Leaf of the book, right.
Yeah,
right.
the inside of shelves. And on the outside, when it's closed, it just looked like wooden paneling. And we use that to display some of our magic posters.
Uh-huh.
So it serves dual purpose.
Wow. Susan?
Well, he has more than 5,000 books in that one room. So,
it's not just a small collection.
well, it's still growing, I'm sure, especially this weekend.
And so books are the main thing, but from what Bill was telling me then also, I guess your son is interested and has got some Batman stuff, or the downstairs in the cave, or...
Well, like I say, we've been involved in caving for years, so we do have a cave on the lower level of the house. So when we take tours, people see not only our apparatus collection, and I like small apparatus, and we take them on a tour of the cave as well.
Anyone in particular that you collect as far as the apparatus?
Small apparatus.
Wilsonworth or?
No particular brand, just whatever suits my fancy at the time.
Yeah.
I like small metal apparatus, fire globes and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Susan, you were going to say something there?
Another thing.
I'll tell you something funny. Yeah. We collected some large pieces like zigzag illusions and stage pieces.
Yeah.
We have a stage inside our library also.
Okay.
Performing area.
So the club come over and perform there, I guess?
Yeah.
We not only have a stage, we have spotlights and seating, In fact, we have some seating that is from the 1920s where you put your hat underneath the seats.
Oh, okay.
That's really interesting in that way.
And we have a loading dock out back, so we can load...
larger illusions.
Exactly. But Susan told me a while back, she said, don't get any more large boxes. No more large illusions. And we just recently acquired
she's making a no, please.
we just recently acquired a large collection of large illusions.
Mm-hmm. Don't know where to put it.
And we have a storage facility for part of that. But we enjoy it.
That sounds phenomenal. And it's been growing all the time, and the fact that you got some more room for that then too. Is this something that people come over and research and look through books time to time?
We do. As I say, we've got a diverse collection, not only of magic, but also natural history and caves. So we have cave explorers come over all the time and do research. We maintain the cave files for North and South Carolina. Uh-huh. So we have a lot of researchers coming in, people from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Resources Commission, and other places that need information on the caves.
Right. That sounds fascinating. And as far as the books go, is there anything that is of particular interest? I mean, is it close-up illusion stage? I mean, or is it just whatever happens to interest you at the time when you buy a book?
I enjoy the biographies of the various magicians. I
really have all of Todd Carr's and all of my cave nays and all that.
I really enjoy the historical aspect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do too. And so I've got certain shelves that are just for that then as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, Cato, thank you very much. I'm glad. Oh, and as far as anybody wanting to come ever and visit, is this something that's open?
We love to have people.
How do they get in contact with you and where you are?
Well, our email is HOLLERS and the number 2, hollers2 @frontier.com.
Okay.
And they can reach us there, or our home phone is 828-652-6040. And we just love having magicians visit.
And where exactly? Which city and where?
We are 32 miles east of Asheville, North Carolina.
Asheville's beautiful.
Yeah, we're in Marion, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And
a little bit of paradise over there.
Oh, we love it. We love the mountains.
Yeah, I can see why. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Cato.
Thank you. It's been our pleasure.
So with the Magic Word Podcast, this is Scotty out. We just finished the final session, actually, here on the third and final day, and they had 3 more great presenters, and then soon we'll be having a dinner, cocktail party, not necessarily in that order. But I got with me a good friend, Jon Stetson. Hey, John.
Hey, Scott. So nice to be with you, as always.
As always. One quick question. You have been involved, I know, with the mentalism convention, the Mindvention, from the standpoint that I remember Bob Cassidy and some of the guys. Did you do some things like before the Mindvention, like it was a pre-convention?
Yeah, we've done it. We did several pre-events. Bob Kohler and I did a great deal of work together, and Bob Cassidy was involved, Leor Minor. Yeah, and actually Bob and I are going to be getting back in the saddle to do some very special
this
products.
Year?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Anything that you can announce now?
Well, it's going to be some great teaching sessions that are going to be available. There's going to be some great conversations between Bob and I that I think would be a great value to anybody performing practical mentalism. And also we're finishing up on some Scott Alexander projects and projects to bring those to fruition to once again, just perpetuate the good memory of our friend and lend support to his family.
I was going to be working on a lecture tour for him because he just finished and was going to be going out to promote his newest book at the time. And he said, as soon as I get off the cruise ship, we'll get together and finalize this. It was just very unfortunate.
I know. A group of us were together in Las Vegas, and I remember I actually was the one who unfortunately had to inform Alon New, who would... they were Denny boys. Right. They were Denny boys. The triplets there.
Took it bad.
Yeah. Oh God, it is still stuff. But that's what makes today such a great day for us. We are living our passion. We're living our life. There's nothing like the history of conjuring. I've been around so many of these sessions. I am not a quote unquote collector. I collect nothing more. Well, I have some stuff, but But for me, it's the history, it's the stories, it's the camaraderie, and it's my friends.
Right.
So that's why these events are so special, different from any other type of magic gathering.
Well put. That's exactly right.
And I love it. And when we think of Scotty, and we think of so many of our friends who, they're great collector friends who are no longer with us.
Yeah.
That once again, it's just such a joy to be here, to be now, to be present, and to have the great gift that so many. We're so wealthy based on our experiences and our stories,
wealth of knowledge and friendship,
and all of it. And I am truly blessed and highly favored, as our good friend Joey says, as I do too, to be here, to be with my friend Scott, to be with all my great buddies here, Tim, Felix. I'm not even going to begin to go through the list and roster because I'd be listing every attendee. And I did not know Lance Burton was going to be here until I saw the John Deere tractor parked out front.
And you knew immediately, hey, Lance must be here.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about right now the afternoon session, and the first one was interesting. That was Jay Hunter talking about don't throw away those throwout cards, and it was many of us do have the famous Thurston card with Jane's daughter on the back of that, but I didn't realize there were so many others.
Oh, really? I know some fascinating revelation came out of that. Some great images, and once again, so many great stories attached to individuals, and so many people that people would not know necessarily off the top of our head. But as in everything else in this life, and I know we've talked about this, Scott, what's our greatest teacher is history.
Yeah,
and there's so much. There's so much in each individual story of every magician,
every artifact. I mean, I was just talking to Bruce Averbach about that, about the things that we've got in our collection, because each one has a story about how you acquired it and maybe the provenance of each item. That's why it's so important to us.
And one of the things I love is when a collection reflects the collector. Well, I think my favorite example of that is Brad Henderson's wonderful collection.
Yeah,
it's all so Brad, in his field of interest. Yeah. And that's why I really, really enjoyed yesterday at Bruce's. In an odd way, we were discussing how it was, I want to say a better experience, but than going to David Copperfield's 2 years ago over here. And of course, nothing can touch the
It was
Copperfield
different.
collection.
Yeah.
But it was nice because it was intimate. You didn't feel overwhelmed. And as we were needing to go through, also, I'm sure you've mentioned the incredible precision of, well, for going back 2 years to the Copperfield tour
Right.
and to the tour yesterday.
Yeah.
What a great job they did, and everything was timed so well, but yet
Curated by different people in each of the areas.
I didn't feel rushed.
No.
That was
Even though
the
they
other
had a
thing.
timer on each, I didn't feel that way. Right?
Yeah, I didn't feel it. I think that was the difference at Bruce's. You know, at David's. There's 87 card ducks. You know, it's like, okay.
Well, I love it. It's kind of like a James Bond quote when he said, well, I like Dom Perignon, which is different from Beluga Caviar. I like them both. You know? Next, we had Gay Fieri that was talking about a half century of magic in the on the block. And it's interesting to kind of hear about the first magic auction, if you will, or I should say auction of magic ephemera and other kinds of props and things, and how that has grown to where we have now, of course, with the digital market that we have on the internet and everything then too. So
yeah, and it's kind of like the last hurrah was that Egyptian Hall gathering, which unfortunately I was working and could not be there.
that was near neck of the woods where you live up there, too.
Pennsylvania, and I would have just so loved to have been there because, as they said today, no internet bids, no phone bids.
You had to be there.
You had to be there, and you had to bid. And I'm lousy in auctions, but I look at some of our friends like Roger Dreyer and stuff. He knows exactly what he's going to do. Not going any further, you know. It's like, I mean, it's the collector mentality is so different.
Okay, I agree.
with everything else. I was never able to acquire a large collection of, say, lithographs that I like because so many of my close friends were, you know, all-star elite collectors, and they'd say, Johnny, I can't sell it to you because it's worth far more. I can get far more for it than it's worth, and I don't want to do that to you.
Right.
In retrospect, I thank them for it, but it was frustrating back then. But it's so fun to see the auctions and to just watch them.
Right.
Watch them. And
it was fun at the end whenever he actually auctioned off two things to kind of show you what he does with Potter and Potter there as well. And there were two items that went for pretty good money.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, my favorite part is of that was watching Mike Caveney, who was standing on the side getting ready to present. I've never seen Mike that intensely interested in anything. He was, I mean, just the way he was, you know, in the thing, I go, wow, it's like he's watching a ball game or something, you know? And, just there's nothing, there's no, substitute for live, as we say.
That's true.
In everything. But the live auction, you know, that's something. And
everybody felt that. It's kind of like, well, I need to buy it because, and I do, and if I don't, I'm going to lose out. It's that FOMO thing, you know?
Yeah.
And everything, there were two items, and they started at $1. And the one which was an SAM card that was signed by Houdini, someone's membership card, went for almost $2,000.
I had a chance to get one of the, I know here, the one that got away, right? So many of the people here, but I saw one that was for sale in Florida, and I was so interested in it, and not just because it was the Houdini autograph, but it was Lester Lake's SAM card, and it was in an autograph store, you know, mounted things, so they would have no reference for Lester Lake, and I'm going, oh boy, it was like $6.50. I should have just grabbed it that day, you know.
Of course, I can relate to that as well.
Yeah, we can all go.
There was an autograph store in Dallas, and I was at the Galleria, and I saw someone told me about a Houdini autograph was there, and this would have been not all that long ago. It was within this century. I want to say it wasn't in the 90s. It was in the early 2000s, and it was like for $75.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in a picture, and I guess had provenance with it, you know, proving it was his. But anyhow, you can never tell.
I remember saving up going, Carter window card, $12.50. and I bought them.
Yep. Bit the bullet and did it. Yeah. You sprung for it. And then finally, we close today. Speaking of Mike Caveney, was talking about Otis Lithograph in Cleveland, Ohio, since we are here in Cleveland. And he was talking about the wonderful cards and posters that Carter had made and working with them. And the correspondence kind of coming back and forth, which was amazing.
Oh, it was so great.
So flowery.
Yeah, Carter's style for writing those letters and whatnot. Just so beautiful, and all real life stories too, like the other lithograph company having to chase Charlie for money and all this kind of
I wanted
thing.
to ask him then the question that why was it that Otis decided to take that leap when he had stiffed the other company?
Well, probably they had no idea.
Well, he must have made good on it, I guess, because they continued to work with him.
He said he wrote the check.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. And
but he never said it was any good.
Okay.
But he did say he wrote the check. So we've got that.
That's true.
We've got that. And there's no one better than Mike to be talking about posters and with his.
Because he was one you referred to earlier, the auction they had back then that was the Egyptian Hall.
Yeah.
Because he and George Daly were the ones who bought that. And that was the thing, whenever they decided how much it was worth, it's like, we're going to start up here. I mean, no one had an idea whether it was worth 100 or 1,000 or 100,000. I mean, you just throw a number out and see where it goes, and people are buying them. Yeah. And as we close over here, I want to thank, I guess Morgan Litho was the one who printed this amazing program that we've got. It is on a nice stock of paper, high quality. I mean, I've not seen a program like this ever for any convention that I've attended.
And why did they go there?
Because
that they had printed. They printed who?
It's Morgan Litho.
It's Morgan Litho, but there was a series of magic lithographs that did come from Morgan.
Oh, that's right.
And they said, wouldn't it be neat
if they would do that?
If they would do that,
the program.
Yeah,
and they have. So that was great.
That's where they went for it. So I think that's a great.
Well, John, as always, very good seeing you.
Scott, it's always fun and it's always a pleasure, and I just love you and
love you too.
Love the podcast.
Thanks.
And anytime, thank you for
you bet
allowing me.
So, with the Magic Word Podcast, that was Jon Stetson. Scotty out. Finally, we get to talk with Bill Smith, who is the organizer. And Bill, you've done such a great job. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for waiting till the end of the convention to talk, because I've been exhausted running around. It's been a great convention.
Yes.
Cleveland, come to Cleveland. People don't realize it's a really great city.
Wonderful city.
There is so much going on here, and the hotel was the perfect. I've done 5 of these Magic Collectors conventions. This was the best hotel we had for a small 180-person convention. So I just want to thank everybody that came. Scott's you're the only one that does updates live and bring it out to. But, any of you guys are listening to this, we're going to be in Vegas in a couple of years.
In a couple of years,
so
next year, might be taking a break, maybe for a year?
Probably will. MagicCollectorExpo.com. Get on there, and we can only handle about 180 here. I think we can handle a little more in Vegas.
In Vegas,
so yeah.
And so, which hotel? Possibly Orleans.
It'll be the Orleans for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But I just have to work out David Copperfield's schedule.
I understand. And the reason we're not doing it next year is because
he's not ready. It's not ready.
We're going to wait until he's going to be.
He's been very busy this year, and there's 3 rooms that we really want to finish. So, but anyways, thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you for the job that you've done.
I'm going to trump you. Bill out.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks again. What a wonderful show we had here this evening with Tim Hill, and we had Alan Howard and Kerry Pollock as being the master of ceremonies. And, of course, can't forget Ricky Smith Jr., who is the Guinness World Book record holder for scaling cards. It was just a wonderful evening, great food, good fellowship. Everybody's still kind of hanging around right now, saying their goodbyes as we get ready to head out tomorrow morning and everything. So, again, Bill's been kind of the chief cook and bottle washer, doing a little bit of everything. He's had some assistance from David Sandy and Lance Rich and so many other people, but really he's kind of been on top of everything. So, again, I want to thank Bill for everything that he has done. It's been a phenomenal convention. And, check out their website so this way that you know whenever we're going to be having the convention in a couple of years, or if that changes, we're going to be having it then next year. So, from Cleveland, Ohio, and from the 2023 Magic Collectors Expo, Scotty out.